your video on. And I'd much rather have the engagement than have the full screen. So I'm just gonna leave it like that. I hope that's okay. If it's not, too bad. Okay, I think I'm gonna get started. A few people in here, just got a couple of texts saying that they're on their way, so they can pop in when they want. So first of all, thank you guys for coming. You know, we talked a little bit this morning just about kind of the overwhelm with webinars and meetings and things like that that are going on. So I thank you very much for taking your time to show up. So if you were here the last 2 weeks, you know that we kind of went through a little bit about the entrepreneur mindset, you know, how to kind of work through a variety of different business models. And so now we're going to kind of get into the meat and potatoes, I guess, of Ultimate Spark. And the first one is with activities management. And so we're going to talk about, you know, that time management myth, how to get a little bit more focused using the best and highest use of your time. Before we kind of like get into the actual class, I just want to preface it by saying, you know, I know that especially as entrepreneurs, we talk a lot about being effective and being efficient all the time. We've got this, you know, kind of thing happening in the world right now. So I don't want anybody to walk away from the class feeling guilty for not doing everything within your business all the time right now. It's really important to handle this. However you need to handle it, right? We're all dealing with it a little bit differently. If you need to dive in on your business, now is a great time, but also spend that time with your family and however you need to. Like for me, I need to shut down in the evenings. No phone, no laptop, no social media, a book, Netflix, walk outside, that kind of thing. And it's been actually great for me. So I just want to preface that because we're going to talk a lot today about being productive. And I just want to make sure that nobody walks away feeling guilty about that right now. Any questions, comments before we get rolling? No? Okay. All right. So activities management, the truth. Realizing your potential. We talked a lot last week about your potential. So it has nothing to do with how you compare to others. I think that's really important right now, especially given how strong social media is in our life and how we are on a daily basis, you know, going to that, especially more maybe now, given that we've all got a bit more time on our hands. But your potential has nothing to do with how you compare to others. So we're going to use this word average a lot throughout the course today. And I don't want you to get offended by the word. We're not trying to imply you're average when compared to others in the industry. We're suggesting that you might be average when compared to your potential, right? We've all got this amazing potential. So similarly, just enough to get by doesn't mean you do just enough to eke out a living, right? But instead it equates to staying inside your comfort zone and avoiding the discomfort that comes with growth and progress. So we've talked a lot about getting outside of our comfort zone. So when we're staying in that, you know, quote unquote average space, we're very comfortable and we're not doing things that, you know, might make us feel uncomfortable or be outside of our comfort zone, which where we know is where growth and progress happens. So the danger in comparing yourself to others is that it typically lulls you into a false sense of reality, right? Causing complacency. You mistakenly believe that because you excel over others, you have reached your potential, right? So in reality, reaching your potential has nothing to do with how you compare to others. And I think that, I mean, in my own life, I can say that, you know, sometimes when I'm spending a lot of time on social media, I look at others, what other people are doing, I compare it back to myself, and it gives me a sense of overwhelm, which has in the past put me into not doing anything, right? I get overwhelmed. I think, oh my gosh, my to-do list is too long, too big. I'm never going to get it done. Everybody else is doing so much more than me. Or the opposite, right? Like I'm good. I'm okay, right? So we just want to come back to reality being reaching your potential has nothing to do with how you compare to others. It's inside. It comes from within. All right. So realizing your potential revolves around the use of hours dedicated to your career. Obviously, when we're talking about potential in this class, we're talking about in terms of your career. So think of the hours you currently dedicate to your career, right? Are you getting the most out of them? Are you consistently operating at your highest and best use? And do you know what your highest and best use of time is? Have you given this some thought, right? Typically, if we were in a class, I would actually throw these answers out. So if anybody wants to chime in about maybe what, do you know what your highest and best use of time is? Have you given that thought before? Everyone's like, and normally we'd have a workbook too, right? So you'd actually be able to like write these down and go through this. And okay, we'll keep going then. So let's get clear. Regardless of the numbers of hours dedicated, your goal is the same, right? So your potential is having or showing the capacity to become. Capacity is the ability to receive or to contain. So can you receive and contain that information? So the capacity of any role is limited by the amount of time invested in that role, right? So how much time are you actually investing in learning your marketing, in learning your listing systems, in learning your buyer systems? Thus, your potential as a realtor is restricted to the number of hours you and others are willing to dedicate to your business. And what we're going to talk a lot about today is being productive versus, just spending time at the office, spending time, going through email. Those are different things. So think of it this way. Oh, yep.
I just wanted to, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just wanted to add that in my experience with coaching a lot of our agents over the years, I've discovered a couple of things that are very important to communicate. And this applies to everyone on an individual basis, as well as people who are going to be part of teams or hire people on their teams, work with people in any way. Different people have different highest and most productive moments in their days. Mm-hmm. Trying to put yourself in a box to be somebody who wakes up in the morning at 6 a.m. if you're a night person may be counterproductive. And I'm not saying that you should not do that or should do that, is that if you are a night owl and you're part of a team, then you should communicate that very highly so there's no misunderstandings. If you're individually, operating on your own, then you need to be careful that you're not trying to, as Jen said, compare yourself to other people who wake up in the morning and go for a jog. Mm-hmm. And you're saying, oh my God, why am I not jogging at 6 in the morning? When maybe your highest and best use of time is, and for your benefit, like your mental state, is to jog in the evening. Mm-hmm. And so you got to also zero in on what time of day is your most productive day. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree. And I've, definitely fluctuated in and out of, being a night owl, especially when I was a lot younger, but also comparing myself to people that were getting up and going to the gym at 5 and 6. And even when I did start to kind of shift to getting up a little bit early, I thought I was never going to be at the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning or out running at 5. And so that's why, we ask, like, do you know what your, oops, sorry. I skipped past there. Do you know what your highest and best use of time is, right? Have you asked yourself those questions? Thank you. Okay, so think of it this way about capacity, right? A capacity of a 16-ounce glass is 16 ounces. Likewise, your capacity as a real estate agent is limited only by the amount of time that you're willing to dedicate to your career. And since time is limited, the goal should be to get the most out of each hours dedicated to the day, right? And that doesn't mean 24 hours. That means how many hours you've decided to dedicate to your day, to your career, I guess I should say. So whether it's 1, 5, 10, 24, the goal is the same. It's to maximize your output, right? Maximizing output has more to do with what you put into the glass than the capacity of the glass. right? So with a 16-ounce glass, you can choose to fill it with water or gold, right? What do you want to choose to fill your time with? So your glass can be full or it can be fulfilling, right? It's totally in your hands. So are you really a $25 million producer disguised as a 5 million? Obviously gross here. But the bottom line is, as long as you're willing to dedicate the time, you might as well get the best possible return by being as effective and efficient as possible. So time's your only limit, right? We talked about that a lot over the last 2 courses. So money is not the key asset in life. It's really time. We're working to spend time with our kids, go on vacation, have more flex in your day, right? So your daily focus should revolve around making as much money as you can with the hours that you're dedicating to your career, right? So understanding this concept and behaving accordingly is the first step towards creating and funding the life that you aspire to. So we talked a lot in the first class about funding your life, right? Why are we really working? Why are we in this career? What is our bigger picture goal, right? So since time is indeed your only limit in life, it should be viewed as precious resource and never squandered. Time limits. This is pretty interesting to look at the number of hours that we actually have, right? So 24 hours in our day, 168 in the week, 730 in the month, and 8,760 hours in a year, right? So how much does that equate to throughout our whole lifetime? And somewhere along here, we're actually going to get a breakdown of hours, but I think it's a little bit ahead. So time should be viewed as your most precious resource, right? You are not guaranteed another day on this earth. This is, hits home, resonates a little bit with me right now. Obviously, also what we're going through, how important each and every day is. So you must make the opportunity to spend it accordingly, right? So time doesn't care whether you spend or you invest. Life has no pause button. It's kind of funny because we're actually in a little bit of a pause at the moment. So typically life has no pause button. So it's not extended or you don't get to make it up, right? So you don't get the hours back. We know that. We talk about all the time. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, just like for that pause button, I have really enjoyed, like I'm really intentionally not trying to use that with my clients because people think, and I think the first 2 weeks, people thought that because we are having this new situation, we have to pause everything. And it's true, we are pausing on our buying or selling
Yes.
projects. But I don't really, like, I try to emphasize it for them that we have not stopped. This market has not stopped and life has not stopped. You don't have to take a 3-week vacation because these are the circumstances. You don't
Yeah.
have to stop being productive and trying to adjust to the new circumstances as easily as possible. So it's the pausing is really an interesting term right now because I see on many people that they are kind of taking advantage
Yeah.
on this situation, and yeah, they don't go for a run at 5 o'clock, but also they haven't left, like they haven't been productive or doing anything until 5
Yeah.
o'clock.
I agree, right? There is, there, we are in a little bit of a pause in our normalcy, I guess, if you will. But, if you sat in on our meeting yesterday morning, there are still sales that are happening. There are still people that, need to buy and sell. Life is going to go on and it is going to get back to some kind of normalcy, hopefully sooner rather than later. But, and so how do you want to spend this time? What do you want to come out of it, right? Some people will say nothing. Some people, like you said, will take the opportunity to not do too much. And I'm totally guilty of, lazing around probably more than I should. And I'm okay with that. I'm totally guilty of like eating way too many cookies, all of the things, all right? But we're not going to regardless of today, we're never going to get it back, right? Regardless of what's happening in the world, we're never going to get it back. And so we want to just like, how do we really want to spend it? So that's why I wanted to preface the course, because I know we're talking a lot about like wasting time throughout this particular course, but I just wanted to preface it with like, you know, however you need to do it is how you need to do it right now. But you're right. I don't really think we're technically on pause. So, and for anybody else that kind of wants to jump in with a conversation, because I have my screen share on, I can't see the whole gallery view. So just unmute yourself and speak up, okay?
So I will make a comment to that
Yeah.
as well, because obviously, for how way I feel about this time is there's a group of us, like when I say a group of us, I mean like just humanity, right?
Yeah.
Where it's a feeling of freezing, right? It's a feeling of just, you know, deer in headlights.
Yeah.
And that's the emotion that I believe is subsiding now. I'm actually feeling that shift happening a lot. And I'm gonna share this with you from a personal feeling and from a business perspective. I agree that one of the worst things we can do is not make your bed every single morning, and not put your nice pillows the way you've always done every single morning. Even though I've been arguing with my wife for 20 years that there's no benefit or use for those 25 extra pillows on our bed,
100%.
I still put them there every single morning. Now, from a sense of pause, what I wish happened is, or what I hope would happen is people would realize that this is an opportunity, since you are going to be home, to take the time within your day to actually stop and experience, like my post yesterday was sincere, was about me going for a walk and realizing that, holy crap, there is spring every single year, but I just don't see it because I'm running at 120 kilometers an hour in the 50 zone, right? So that's kind of the idea. However, on a business perspective, I'm going to share with everyone that you've taken your pause, you've had the reasons why maybe we should not call people, but now we need to start getting our minds back in the place that we had it before, because there's going to be a tipping point. There's a lot of people that are getting very restless in every industry. Every industry. Yeah, in every industry, they're getting really restless. And this is not a self-serving comment. There are a lot of people who have their moving plans on hold, and they don't want them on hold. So we need to be in front of those people and navigate and help them navigate through these emotions and start planning, because we're going to wake up as long as these groundhog days feel. And, you know, time, this is all we have right now is our time. You know, it's our only limitation, but we have a lot of it. They're going to wake up and they're all going to want to go out all at the same time. And you have to be prepared for that. You got to manage all that going through.
Just one thought regarding that, it's Rita, and just for those that on the pause. So we spoke about it in the other Zoom meeting, that this is the time when we can get basically the closest to our clients. And I try to squeeze their time that I have to drive a lot, and when I drive, I always call every single day. I call 2 clients. And they appreciate it so much because of the human voice, because of the things. But basically what I'm trying to say is that when you're home, when you're doing nothing, and you're just giving a call to a client and talking about not real estate at all, about just everyday life, they really appreciate it. Plus you're putting an investment to your future sales or buys.
So
absolutely.
And that's what we're talking about right now. Now's the time to put your time in a budget. And this is time to start looking at your time in, you know, the way Jen is discussing it right now. It needs to be, you know, I'm looking at it, I'm reading it, a precious resource right now.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. I I totally agree. And you know, Tim, that whole thing about people getting antsy and getting like, we're meant to be in motion, right? We're, as humans, we're meant to be continuously moving, whether physically or growth or whatever. And I just think that there is this, you know, this overarching restlessness of, you know, kind of like how to move forward and through this. And, you know, we've kind of dealt with the grief maybe as a whole of what's going on, but it really is now a time to like look at, okay, while we're continue through the rest of this season, what can we do? And then afterwards, you know, what can we do? And I feel that a lot more. So, okay, so to kind of come back into this, springboard off of what Tim was talking about, and creating a time budget, right? So to keep from wasting time, you can approach each day with a time budget. So that means that you must specifically define the number of hours that you plan to invest, not spend, invest. Once you have a budget, focus on making your activities, right? So when we're talking about budget in this aspect, we're not talking about money. We're talking about your time. How much are you going to invest in your business, in the activities that really matter, right? So most people simply react to the day as it appears. So we're reacting to the calls, we're reacting to the text messages, we're reacting to everything. And spontaneous and reactive behavior leads to wasted time, right? Thus, to avoid it, you must be deliberate and be intentional with your time. So another truth, inefficient behavior always takes more time. So it takes more time to be inefficient and reactive. While many agents willingly dedicate 10 hours per day to their careers, most only benefit from 6. I actually say they probably benefit from a little bit less than that. But those same agents would better be served to reduce their actual working days to 6 hours and be totally intentional and totally deliberate within that time, right? I think you can all agree on some level that, you know, you might come into the office at 9, 10, 11, some, and, you know, you say hello to other people, you catch up, you chat, you go for lunch, you know, maybe call a couple people. But if you condense that time and were deliberate and intentional in a smaller number of hours, would you be more efficient, right? We're going to talk about today. The cost of wasting time. So you can't control time or results. You can control the activities that you manage within that time, right? So I hear a lot of people say this, I don't have enough time, I need more time. That is a very limiting belief. We all have 24 hours. So, you know, the people that we look up to the most, they have 24 hours. We all have the same amount of time. So that is often used by overwhelmed people. The truth is, you all have time to get what you want, right? Every day offers 24 hours. It's up to you how you use and invest and spend that time. So overwhelmed people typically spend large portions of their time on irrelevant activities, right? They follow no plan and waste most of their time, since time is limited to 24 hours. You must invest wisely by choosing only the activities that support your know, do, and have. So if you were not in the last 2 courses, we talked about what you need to know, what you need to do, and then what you need to physically have in order to do activities, right? Whether it's calling your clients, whether it's, you know, advertising, whether it's open houses. Bad example right now, you know what I mean? Things
virtual open houses.
Virtual open houses, yes. So the things that you need to know, the things that you need to do, and the things that you need to have, right? Those should be the only things that you should be working on when you are invested in your business. So there'll always be an opportunity cost associated with wasting time. So it's vital that you budget and invest your time as you would your money. It's an important concept to really, really dig into and really think about. Especially right now, we've been so, we've been looking at our budget. We've been, you know, trying to cut our expenses. We've really like dug down deep into what our actual money budget looks like. And much like we were just talking about, now is a really good time to dig down deep in our time budget and where we're actually spending our time. This slide, I love / think it's a little bit scary, because it actually breaks down if you're only wasting an hour a day. So if you dedicate, say, 6 hours a day to your business, and I know that we're all working 24/7, but when I'm talking about dedicated, I'm talking about your actual time either building your business or prospecting, right? So if we waste 1 hour a day 5 days a week for 48 weeks, that turns into 240 hours a year that we've wasted, right? So this particular language breaks it down into dials. We can say anything we want. We can calling our clients, texting our clients, working on our marketing plan, any type of communication outside with our clients. So 240 hours, if we could speak to or have 30 conversations, that means we're wasting 7,200 additional conversations with our sellers and our buyers, right? So then it breaks it down even further. And we are actually looking at like conversion rates, if we were to actually convert those conversations. And it basically says that in a place where your average 240,000 is your average income, you could be wasting up to 2.4 million over 10 years, right? Like that's a lot of cash. I don't know about you, but I could use an extra $2.4 million in my pocket. Okay, so the cost of wasting time, escaping that overwhelmed feeling and becoming more productive is the result of moving from a spontaneous and reactive into intentional and proactive. And again, we talked a lot about that in the last 2 courses. I think we know when we're in that spontaneous and reactive zone, right? We are just, maybe we've got an offer that's going to fall apart, and like every time the phone rings, we're like reacting to it, right? There are these instances where we do need to be reactive. We do need to stop and pick up the phone. But there are, top producers out there, whatever you feel a top producer might be, that are intentional and proactive with every hour of their day, right? Which is a space that to get over that overwhelm, we need to jump into. We need to get into being intentional and proactive. So we talked a lot about this, about the different kinds of sales people. So full-time realtors fall into 4 categories. The typical salesperson, right? A thriving salesperson, a typical entrepreneur, and a thriving entrepreneur. And we're gonna like break those down a little bit more. So first, you establish your approach. So a typical means you're staying in the comfort zone, right? You're a little bit more spontaneous and reactive because you're doing things that are easy and convenient, right? So number 2, thriving, seeking potential, becoming a little bit more intentional and proactive with your activities. And some of them are challenging, but therefore rewarding. Does that make sense to everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then you want to determine your role, right? Do you want to be a salesperson? Do you want to focus on the job? Do you want it to be all about you and getting rich? Whereas an entrepreneur focusing on a business, focusing on leverage and getting wealthy, right? Again, we talked about that last week and the week before, about leveraging other people within your business in order to actually build wealth, right? You guys understand the difference between those 2? Okay, got some nods, perfect. So everyone begins at a typical salesperson. Everyone begins being spontaneous and reactive. Think about, your first year, 2 years in the business. You're just trying to get in front of people, trying to have those conversations, and being very reactive to your phone, to social media, to everybody and everything, right? Anytime you hear somebody talk about real estate, you react, you try to jump in, right? So a typical salesperson, the only difference between all 4 of these is choices, right? We're going to talk about that. So the journey to abundance, love that word. For each role you choose, you have the opportunity to progress through each of those 3 phases, right? So the comfort phase, the mastery phase, the freedom phase. Each phase is unique and it requires you to establish and maintain specific productive behavioral habits. Remember, we talked a lot about behavioral habits last week if you were here. So during the journey, you have the opportunity to accumulate 3 1/3 components for a phase. We'll talk about that. So the goal and the sales game is to behaviorally internalize the components of each phase and then progress to the next phase. Skip past that one. So the journey to abundance, right? So number one, I'm going to work from the bottom up. Number one, commitment. Number two, confidence. And then 3, consistency. So commitment, confidence, and consistency. Those are the things that we need to continue all the time. Then learning, or our beliefs. Then do we have the endurance to continue to do this all the time, right? Continue to recommit, continue to be confident in our decisions, continue to be consistent with our actions, and then the endurance to continue to do that. Do we have effectiveness with our time and efficiency with our time? And then have we mastered our systems? Talk a lot about systems in this industry and mastering them. And again, lots of people have done this before. So everybody that gets to a point where they can master their systems can jump into that journey of abundance. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Good? That was perfect. So 10 steps to becoming fully leveraged, right? Which, you know, most of us want to get into a space where we're leveraging other people so that we have more time, so that we can do the things that we really want to do. That is why we kind of all decided that we wanted to get into this industry, right? So is your current production by design, or is it by coincidence, right? So have you designed where you currently are? Are you designing where it is that you want to go? Again, Rita, we talked about taking this time. This is a really good time to really sit down and figure out, okay, what, have I designed where I am? First of all, we've all made the choices and things to get where we are right now. So keeping that in mind, you can make the choices to get to where it is, that you want to go, right? So we talk about this operational model for our business. We're going to, throughout the whole course, come back to this. So step one is to really analyze the operational model to determine the sources and strategies used to achieve the current results or needed to achieve the desired results. Right? Step two, record all your current activities. So this will take at least 2 weeks. This might be a really good exercise to do right now. And I have to bear with me because I don't have the workbook, but there might be a section in your workbook where you can actually record your time for the next 2 weeks, right? So you can record everything that it is that you're doing. And again, being aware that we're in a season right now where we have a little bit more time at home. But recording that time, what does that look like? What are you doing throughout the day? And maybe right now it's just the time you can record that you're dedicating to your business, right? What activities are you actually doing? And what we typically do at this spot within this course is we actually I give you a lesson to go and write down everything that you're doing over the next 2 weeks, whether it is, what time it is you're showing up at the office, what you're doing in those hours, when you're going out on your showings, everything, right? So you actually record what you're doing over the next 2 weeks and then have a really hard look at it. Number three. Yep.
I've done that exercise, and if anyone who's doing it now, I recommend for them to download MindNode or some sort of like process or thought program, because it really starts off with what you think that you've done, but it really what you think you did turns out to be like 10 other things that you've done just to get that thing done. And then when I found that process of doing this was really useful when it came down to hiring the assistant, because then I took those things I've done and, it helped me streamline my processes and, or create things to help streamline the processes. So if you don't have MindNode, I use it almost for everything in my life.
Can you spell that out? MindNode, like N-O-D-E?
Yeah, N-O-D-E.
Okay. I'm going to look it up and we'll drop it into our Facebook group. That's great. Thank you. And I think that's, you know, super important to talk about is, you know, going through that, you've been able to hire an assistant. And I think, and you can, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that it was a very almost seamless transition, right? To have your assistant kind of take some of those things off of your plate because you took the time to do this.
Yeah, and I guess on the last slide there was something you mentioned was like endurance and consistency, or
Yeah.
I call it discipline. And
yeah, same thing.
I feel like realtors, a lot of realtors lack it because we're this type of personality. We're on the go. We want to do like a million things at once. This is how we entertain ourselves.
Yeah.
We chose this job because we can't sit at a desk for 8 hours, you know?
Yeah.
That being said, I just couldn't do most of the things that I wrote on that list.
Yeah.
It was going to kill me if I had to do all those things. So I gave them all to the assistant. So that was my first challenge, was to get that done so I can hire the assistant and pass those things I hate doing.
Yep.
And then going back to the first one, where you spend most of your time, is all the things I do enjoy, and those ended up being the ones I made the most money in.
Yeah. And I think that's an important, you know, we don't love doing all of the things that we have to do in this business. And in order to really get to that point of leverage, you want to hire somebody that's better at it than you, right? That's better at the details, that's better at the admin, or that's better at the marketing, or whatever it might be, right? We're all a little bit different within our business models, but you actually want to hire somebody that likes to do those things because they're probably better at it, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's, you know, that's basically step number 3, right? Distinguish between vital and irrelevant activities. Now, irrelevant might not be the greatest choice of words, but they still need to be done, right? These are things that still need to be done, but aren't the highest and best use of your time, right? So challenge each activity when you do write it down. And if you guys, if you do want to go through and do this activity with me, just let me know. I'd be super happy to do it. This would probably be a good time for me to like do a check-in and do, you know, a list as well. So let me know. I'd be happy to do it. We can, you know, be accountability partners or groups. So if you're going to do it, challenge each activity to make sure it's absolutely necessary for progressing from find to close, right? So finding the person or finding the prospect, finding the new client, to closing the new client, and increasing the profitability of your business. So step 4 is to create 2 progressive vital activity only checklists, one for buyers and one for sellers. So 10 steps, that's what we were talking about, to becoming fully leveraged. The next 5 are mandatory only if you attend to ascend beyond that phase 1 status. So only if you want to go from being your typical agent into the thriving agent, right? So number 5, establish a detailed step-by-step instructional procedures for each activity on the checklist, right? So that when somebody comes into your business, whether it's an assistant like Marlon was just talking about, or a buyer's agent, right? They can be trained just by that checklist. So before proceeding to step 6, make sure you are as effective and efficient as you can be at phase 1. So as effective, as possible at those activities. And can you proactively generate new business, right? One of the things that I see most often in people is that they hire too quickly. They have a busy season in their business. They hire somebody, they bring them on. They don't have the time to train them because they're working on showings, working on offers, and then they haven't created that system for somebody to step in. So they let them go, and then they go through that all over again. And because they also haven't figured out how to proactively generate new business all the time, they have to end up letting somebody go because maybe they can't afford to keep them. So you want to avoid that, right? You want to make sure that you've got your systems down, that you know what they are, that you've, like Marlon, done the checklist, the things that you don't like to do like to do, what is, actively building your business. And are you as efficient at all of those things as you possibly can be? And I know it's difficult because you don't like to do them, but are you as efficient at them and generating new leads before you bring somebody else in? So number 6, create an organizational chart of desired positions, right? So what might that assistant be, or marketing person, or admin, or buyer agent, or listing, coordinator, and then assign duties to each position on the chart from the checklist that you have created, right? So this is really when you want to get into that, building your business, building a team, hiring an assistant. Step number 8, find and attract talent. Hire someone who is a superb match for that actual job description, right? Again, a lot of people hire quickly and fire slowly. And if you, study a lot on the topic, you actually need those opposite. You need to hire slowly and fire quickly, right? You need to hire. Yeah.
Sorry, quick question about that.
Yeah.
Is it possible to help in the to have you aid me in the hiring process? Because as you know, I suck at hiring and training. So I need an outside source.
Yeah, first of all, yes, I'd be happy to help. Actually, within this class, we have like job descriptions for a variety of positions. But again, Jeff, I just want to come back to make sure we're mastering the systems already, making sure that we've got the checklist and that already, which I know we've talked about a little bit, but really taking that time to hire the right person. But yeah, I'd absolutely help. Within training, we've got, obviously the environment is a little bit different right now. But, we do have assistants there to, not assistants, but assistants. Like we have help there within the office to help you train your assistant. And someone.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that we have many times we many times receive a lot of applications from different people looking for a position in our company. We obviously can't hire all of them, so we can be a flow for many of you as well. We have Diana Kaluro, who sat down face to face with many candidates within our for our agents and actually trained them on the TREB, the system of how it works, the processes within a company, how to hand in a transaction, how to complete a trade record sheet. Like a lot of the things that you should not, spend the time to teach them, we can do that for you.
That would be amazing.
We always have, obviously we're better communicators today than we have been. We're having more reasons to communicate a lot of different things, but we've always been doing it. We've been doing it for years, and we're more than happy to provide it to anybody else. Yeah,
that's awesome because, when we all get busy, I know for me, when I see a squirrel, obviously I switch gears, but for me, I don't have, is the time there? Yeah, maybe, but I just can't find it. So to sit and train and go through things, with my wife working with me, I don't have the time to even train her properly. So that would be amazing.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so step back in here. So what did we just say? Step number 8, yeah, we were talking about finding and attracting the right talent. Step number 9, use that procedures manual that you've created to train that recently hired talent, right? So that's why in step number 5, we talked about actually making that manual, putting everything together, all of your systems together, so that when you do find that right person, it is a lot easier to train them more so on your systems than, what Tim was talking about in the office. We can obviously help with all of that, but your systems are going to be specific to your business, right?
Yeah, Jeff, if you're thinking about hiring an assistant, I think what Jen and Tim were talking about is systems, is meaning you basically have to streamline every single thing that you do or want your assistant to do.
Mhm.
that you could put it all down on one piece of paper and have her run on it. That will make that piece of paper might require you to train her maybe an hour and follow up the next day or the week. But
Right.
you're gonna still be given some time, but you're not training in front of a computer. Most of my training on my assistant was done on a piece of paper because I went down to that detail, all the way down to a step-by-step process.
Mhm.
And
How did you?
can I add, if you don't mind, Jeff,
Yeah.
before maybe this will answer the question next because I see it coming. I've always said the best way for you to get your systems written down is not to sit down at your computer and start writing them down. It's overwhelm. You will not remember
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
As you're actually executing an activity, you need to be writing it down. So you've talked to a client on the as silly as it sounds, you're talking to a buyer who's returning a call from an online ad, and you write down your script and how you handled it in detail at that moment. And after you've
Yeah.
written it down 3 or 4 times, you're going to come down with the way you want that response and system to be. And then before you know it, over a week or 2 or a month, you're going to have an operations manual. And it may be loose and scribbly and not in the proper handwriting, but it's there.
Yeah.
And then when you hire your assistant, you give that scribbly, messed up book to that assistant, and you ask that assistant to pretty it up for you, to put it in order. In essence, what happens is when you're writing, it goes up your arm. Remember all the trainers? It goes up
Yep.
your arm into your brain, right? When
Yep.
you're typing, it goes up both arms into your brain. So I challenge anybody in this class to call Diana at the office and ask her how many times I've given her something completely irrelevant, something that I will never ever use, and asked her to type it out. And one day she came to me, she says, I get what you're doing. You are coaching me without coaching me. I had her write out The Secret in a book. Like I actually gave it to her, said, could you make this a Remax Ultimate book, The Secret? She goes, why? It's here. I said, I want you to retype the entire book
Wow.
with logos on it. And when she was done, she came and sat down in front of my desk and said, I just can't thank you enough for what you did. I just internalized everything. So going back to your assistant, by giving your scrapbook and giving it, they're going to internalize your system and get into your brain of who you are and how you operate. Make sense?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, on top of that, Jeff, because I know that your personality, Jeff, we are very similar in, you know, our kind of like squirrel moments and needing to focus. So maybe what you might help is, you know, having a piece of paper or a binder with sheets in it or a notebook or whatever that's just dedicated to hiring at your desk. And when you're doing things, you just do what Tim said and scribble it down, right? So when you call make your calls, when you go on a listing appointment, when you know, do whatever else it is, make your just listed postcards, whatever it might be, right? Just have that nearby so that it's all in one central location, and then you can just pass that on. And it doesn't have to be pretty, right?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm actually thinking
scribbled notes. It's not pretty, but it
Yeah.
totally makes sense to me. And what I need to do to move forward, right?
I call it a map. I call it a map and a mop. A map is your marketing action plan. A mop is your marketing operational plan.
Yep.
I like it.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
you need a map and a mop. You're cleaning up your business, right? It's gonna look fantastic after, but you need a map to know where you're going.
Yeah. I think also what I'm going to do in addition, like I do take notes and stuff, but I think when I'm doing my calls, I'm going to record them. So this way I can just give it over and say, here you go.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. For sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so number 9, the procedures manual. Number 10, hold talent accountable, right, to appropriate performance standards. So how are you going to hold this person that you're hiring accountable to what it is that you've asked them to do, right? How are we doing for time? 5 more minutes. We're going to go through one more kind of idea, and then I'll stop it there for today because I don't want to, again, take up too much of your time. And much like we said at the beginning, we're about an hour within these virtual meetings where we start to veer off and try to do other things. So we'll talk about the tools of intent, right? So a thriving business results from knowing the answers to 5 important questions. So question, why do real estate agents maximize their daily output, right? Why do they do that? Why do some do it? It's because they intend to, because that's their intention, right? We talked about, you know, being spontaneous versus being intentional. The real estate agents that do maximize their daily output, it's because they intend to do it, right? They have a plan, whatever it might look like for their day, and they go about that plan accordingly. So the thriving comes as the result of knowing why you're doing what you're doing, what it is you're doing, how you're doing it, who you're doing it with, when you're doing it, and thus you have intent. So we actually talked about this a lot in the last class, this entrepreneur's mantra. And that was that it's unacceptable for my business to profit less than X, right? Whatever that might be, right? So thriving agents consider the following 5 tools essential. So the entrepreneur's mantra reflects why you do it. The economic model, which we talked about, identifies what must be done. The operational model, which we're talking about today, identifies how it's actually going to be done. Organizational model within your business identifies who is going to do it. And the activities management system identifies when it's actually going to get done. And I think that's a good place for us to pause for today, because what we'll talk about next week is number 5. So how to help build that schedule so that we can figure out when certain things are going to get done in our business. Any further questions, comments? Thanks so much for like engaging and chatting and sharing with us. I love it. I can't wait to do this like actually in a classroom again, or a training room where we can like see each other and chat, and it's a little bit different like this, but still I like to see your face.
Thanks very much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming, Marlon, and for you know, putting your couple of cents in. I know that this is new for you, that you've, you know, just gone through this process. So I super appreciate you coming and sharing.
You're welcome.
And it's nice to see you.
It's always nice to see you guys.
Yeah. Okay, you guys, we will shut it down there. We'll pick back up next Tuesday at 10. Go to myremaxultimate.com and click on the calendar for everything else that we've got going on. There's a lot of you know, online training the end of this week and the next couple of weeks. So everything is there. Okay.
All right.
Awesome.
Anything else, Kim? You want to add anything before we head out?
Thank you guys so much for this.
Thank you. Okay. Bye, you guys.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.